So the lesson yesterday is always a starting point, because the starting point of anything that you want to achieve in life is setting direction for yourself, finding a point in the future that you want to get to, that you've never experienced before, something that you genuinely want, something that's on your heart. Take a pen, write it down on in your journal, and write down 30 things that you want, because it actually takes time to uncover what it is that you genuinely want. It's taken me probably 6 years to get to this goal that I've got here. I carry around with me. I write it out in the morning afresh. And that's the process, is when you keep writing it out, what it is that you want, it actually evolves over time. So on my cards, these cards that I carry around, my daughters give these boxes of these to me for Christmas presents and so on, because I've been doing it for that long. But what happens is, as you write out every day, some people write it out multiple times a day. When I'm really getting into, I want to get to hit a milestone, which is a smaller part of my goal, I might even be writing that 10, 20, 30 times in a day. In fact, every time in between calls like this, because I just finished one at 10, I can be writing it out on a piece of paper. I can fill it up in a piece of paper, what that goal is, because what it does is it just really focuses your mind. And the more focused you are, the quicker you'll move into the direction of what it is that you want to achieve. And it's an interesting concept, the whole idea of continual growth. The continual growth, some people are repelled by the idea because they think that, capitalism's bad, and that we should be saving the planet and so on. And I agree with all those things. I mean, people can really misuse the idea of capitalism. People can really misuse the environment and so on. But the fact remains is that every human being, when they wake up in the morning, they are going into their day and they realize that there are things that they don't want in their life. And for some of those people, they recognize that if they take their attention and say, okay, I don't want that, and they pivot and they say, well, I'd rather that, and they focus their attention on that new idea, that's what they will create in their life. And so people are forever expanding, and people are forever wanting more from life. They want, better homes. If they're a sports person, they want to run faster or further or jump higher and so on. If they're in business, they want to earn more or, create more and so on. So people naturally they default to expansion, and that's because it's inherent in our nature. Now, when you become really good at strategically directing that energy, then you just become very efficient at achieving what you want quicker. That's it. Now, is that consumerism and so on? But I suppose it's everything. And we can always look at the bad, or we can look at the good. Now, I'm quite happy with the options that we have in life nowadays. I mean, my wife and I live in a nice house. We drive nice cars and we go on nice holidays. And it wasn't always like that, but now it is. And we have those options to choose. I'd rather that than not have that. And so when people say it's bad to expansion and growth and so on, fair enough, that's a perception. But it's not going to ever stop, because when people wake up every day and they say, I don't like that in my life, I don't want to live in this type of home anymore, I'd rather live in that type of home, that's just what's going to happen. And so I think it's worth recognizing that, and then becoming really good at utilizing our creative faculties to achieve that. So we've still got a few minutes. I will get started with the lesson at midday, as I kind of promised everyone. I'd originally set this up to run these lessons over the next couple of days. So it was Monday, yesterday, today, midday, tomorrow, midday, and Thursday is a bonus day. on attitude at midday Brisbane time. I was set up to do that on Facebook, but then when I arrived on Facebook, for some reason, the live button disappeared. So I've come back to TikTok, and that's why I'm here. Anyway, the idea with this lesson is to give you as much value as possible. I put my link to my website, my email, support@mindsetguide.com.au. If you send me an email, I'll send you the PDF of this lesson today, send you the PDF of the lesson yesterday. I've got a bonus in that Bob Proctor wrote an article on decision making, and that's in there. In fact, I'll go through that briefly if we've got time today. It's a really good article because no one's ever taught really to make decisions, but decisions influence our lives. And when I get into this lesson on understanding how to manage fear in your life, you'll understand why decision making is such a really important part. And some people are naturally good at it, they just make decisions. But for most people, because we haven't been taught to make decisions, we're not particularly good at it. And so we may procrastinate on our ideas, and then it just slows up momentum and slows up good coming into your experience of life. All right, so still 4 minutes to go. I'll just have a look and see if anyone's emailed me. All right, and as I said earlier on, if anyone wants to review the lesson that I did yesterday on goal setting, it's quite a thorough, in-depth understanding as Bob Proctor taught us, because if you're going to set a goal, set the right goal. Otherwise, you're going to end up sending yourself in the wrong direction. There's 3 types of goals, essentially. An A-type goal is something you set that you already know how to do. So let's say, for instance, I once owned a grey Ford Falcon. And so if I set the goal of getting another Ford Falcon, that's not really a goal. I'm going sideways. There's no growth attached to that. A B-type goal is something you think you can do. So let's say I had and I say I'll sell this old Ford Falcon, which I couldn't. I got $500 for it. And went to the dump, but sell my car and maybe save some money here and maybe sell an old boat or something, and then I can buy a new Ford Falcon. That's still not a goal. That's just manipulating things that you've already have. And so the idea of a true goal is what we call a C-type goal. And that's true fantasy. That's when you're saying, this is what I really want. This is what I want for my life. And you don't know how to get it, but you really want it. You write it on a piece of paper. Goal setting is different to goal achieving. They're 2 different subjects. Goal setting is really important to help you set the direction of your life. If you do goal setting correctly, you'll eventually uncover your true purpose, which, a lot of people talk about that. Some people don't believe in it. Some people believe that this whole purpose thing is a waste of time. But quite honestly, when you find out what it is that you truly want, I don't know if it comes to you because, it was laid on your heart by infinite intelligence or whatever. That's not the point. But when you find out what you really want to do in life, and you're able to wake up every day and go and do that, it's a lot easier than going to do things that you don't want to do. We just sold a business, and we had that for 12 years. And we bought the business for 2 reasons. One, I didn't want to travel anymore. My oldest daughter was 13, and I didn't want to travel New South Wales and Northern Territory selling bits and pieces. I wanted to be there for my girls as they went through school, and they've left home now. And so that was one reason we bought. I also needed to pay the mortgage. So we bought the business for that. But apart from the people that we employed, which were, some of them worked for 10 years with us and longer, they were wonderful people. The actual job was mind-numbingly dull. Didn't enjoy it. So there was no pleasure in going to work every day to do that. Yes, we were earning money, but that's not the point. Finding out what you truly want to do. I don't want to do anything other than what I'm doing now for the rest of my life. I've probably got 40 years of my life left on this planet. And so it's really enjoyable waking up every day knowing what I'm going to go and do and find pleasure in it, helping people become a better version of who they were yesterday, giving them a system so they can improve their career, their business, go after the lifestyle that they genuinely want. Because I've been through that. I know what I did and how I did it. Bob Proctor was the guy that coached me through that. He's not with us anymore, but I'm now a consultant for the Proctor Gallagher Institute because of that, because what he taught me gave me such enormous success that I just want that for everyone. So it is midday now, Brisbane time. I'm going to get started with lesson 2 of design your master plan for your success. And so what we're going to talk to you today about is the whole issue of fear, understanding fear. When you understand fear and you can manage fear, then you can actually move faster towards what it is that you want. And we'll get into that. So the first question that we'll start with is, if you've got a journal or a piece of paper with you, just write down, what is it that you genuinely want from life? What is it that you genuinely want? Is it one thing? Is it 10 things? It doesn't matter. Just write it down. Because what you're doing then is you're taking it out of your mind, which is just as real as the physical world, because your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are just as real, because that's where they're created. Then they come into the physical world. But if you take an idea and you put it on paper, now you're starting the first step of the creative process. What do I genuinely want? So today we're going to talk about, this is day 2 of Design Your Master Plan for Success, and we're going to talk about fear. And the basic I'm going to talk about are paradigms that hold us in bondage at any stage of our life. It doesn't matter what level of our life or level of perceived success and so on. There are paradigms that are holding us back from becoming a better version of who we were yesterday. And the example is that Bob always used to use, which was quite prominent, was Tiger Woods. When Tiger Woods was at the top of his game, he was so far ahead. I don't play golf, but every golfer that I've ever spoken to, they've always said he was so far ahead of the next competitor that he was just a complete league on his own. And what was interesting about him is that he changed his swing twice to get better. So the point is that a paradigm is an interesting concept, because a paradigm, it's an idea, or it's a collection of ideas that are lodged in your subconscious mind, habits, beliefs, routines, and they cause us to act in a certain way every day. And what it also implies, a paradigm, is that it's a game. Like any subject that we're dealing with is a game, and it's got rules and it's got boundaries or borders that we operate within. And so our mind and the image of who we think we are, the concept of who we think we are, is a paradigm. And when you start to stretch the borders of that paradigm, of that self-image of who you think you are, the concept of you, then you can allow more into your life, because you can believe that you can have more, and so on. So the paradigms holding you bondage. Then we'll talk about the concept of the terror barrier, the 4 steps of going from where one is right now in a set of routines through thinking of a new idea. Oh, well, maybe I would rather that. Then what happens when you start to step out in that new direction. And then at that point, you actually have a choice. You can bounce back to safe and secure, what you understand, and stay within step one, bondage, or you can step through a kind of psychological wall or barrier into freedom and start living from a different level of understanding in life. And so we'll talk about that. I have this in a PDF. If anyone wants it, you can email me on support@mindsetguy.com.au. I can send that through to you. And I'm going to upload this recording onto my closed Facebook group. If anyone wants to join that and review this with the PDF, then please do so. Just the link to that that private Facebook group's on the bio of this TikTok, so it's not that difficult to do. Then I'll go through how to make a decision, and there's an article Bob wrote on decision making. All right, so for everyone that's here, welcome. I would recommend, if you're going to listen to me talking, it might be worth your while just setting an intention of what it is that you're looking for. What is the information that you're looking for that might be a nugget to move you to a new stage of your life? Write it down. Because if you write it down, what's interesting is you might hear me say it. It might be in this presentation. You might be here right exactly at the right time for you to have a shift in outcomes in your life, because it doesn't matter who we are, there is some part of our lives that we would rather not have, or we would prefer to improve, but often we don't have a plan to do that. So we just accept where we're at, and we don't have to do that, not at all. So write down an intention if you've got a journal. So I'm just going to follow through the PDF I've got here. And when we're talking about moving from where you are to understanding how to get to a method of achieving goals in your life, basically got 7 steps. 10 o'clock on a TikTok, 10 o'clock I do a presentation. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, I just go through those 7 steps. I can't do it all in one session, but I just keep rolling that over, because the 7 steps don't change. So when I set a new goal for my business and so on, I will just start at the beginning and just start going through the method to achieve that goal. And what happens is you just get better and better at it. I don't think you ever master it. I don't think that ever happens, but you just get better and better at achieving the goals that you set for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a very healthy thing to do, because it saves you being frustrated with life. It saves you feeling, unsatisfied, because there are things that you haven't achieved in your life that you'd like to achieve, but you just don't know how to do it. So the resistance is a simple idea. When you get started, let's say you've set a goal. Let's say some of you were with me yesterday, and you actually did some of the homework which I suggested you should do, which is, write down 30 things that you want, be it spiritual, be it financial, the home that you want to live in. It doesn't matter what it is. Just write down 30 things, the holidays that you want to take. Write them down. And out of that, just pick one financial goal. And the reason why I suggest that, what Bob used to teach us, the reason for that is that a financial goal is no different to any other goal, except you can measure it to the penny. So then you can prove to yourself that you can achieve goals. And so then you can apply the same system at the same time or after for achieving better outcomes in relationships and you name it. So I do this all the time, and as a result, my relationships with my daughters are good, with my wife's always getting better, and it's just a system. That's all it is. And rather that than not having clarity on how to improve your lot in life. So when you step out in the direction of what you want, let's say you get the concept of setting a goal that's outside of your comfort zone, because a goal is not only to get what you want. A goal is for you to grow into the person you're meant to be. We can always become a better version of who we were yesterday. Every single human being can become a better version. And as a result, you'll get better outcomes in your life. And as a result, you'll be able to enjoy your life a lot more, because you're taking positive steps in the direction of what you want. It's very encouraging. And, I've got some quite cynical mates. They're dear friends, but they will often scoff at what I say. But they're goal-setting people. They just don't know how to articulate it. I spend a lot of time learning to articulate this material, because I think it's so important. I think every single human being we should be taught this material at school, and then at least then we'd start making better decisions for our life. We'd have less problems in the world, because people realize who they really are, and they won't need to compete. We can learn to create. When we learn to create, we become wonderful human beings, because we're not trying to take from someone else. We're creating for ourselves. It's a wonderful thing. So when we step out of that comfort zone in the direction of what we want, we're stepping into new territory, because we haven't been there before. And what happens is that the paradigm is, the bigger the goal, the bigger the resistance. And what's happening is that the habits, routines, beliefs that we have set in our mind are saying, we have no idea where you want to go. We don't understand that territory you're moving into. We have no map. We have no thoughts or ideas on that moving there. So therefore, why don't you, logic and reason will say, well, why don't you just stay where you're comfortable? It's safe here. They will kick and buck. The more you step out, the more it's going to, your paradigm is going to be trying to find reasons why you should stay where you are, why you should. And this is the difference between having a wish and having a goal. A wish is something hopeful, but very few people will take action on it, because other people are successful. I'm not successful. Often people have that mindset. Anyone can be prosperous on this planet. Anyone can. Anyone can learn to live life on their terms. Anyone can learn the laws that govern success. And it's a subject. Anyone can learn that. And it's not complicated. It just requires application. How do you apply? How do you get started on learning the laws that govern this universe? Well, our lives are full. What you've got to do is every day just allocate time. You're going to have to give up something of a lower nature to start learning something that will give you a better outcome in your life. Most people won't do that, because you have to learn to make that a habit. And we're already in habits. And so some people will do it, and I've been through it myself, where you get all fired up, download a course, try and do it on your own, and you're at it for 2 weeks, and then, bugger it, I'll just watch Netflix. And, one night you don't do it, or one morning you don't do it, turns into two, and then before you know it, a year's gone by, and you haven't actually done anything. And literally that happened to me before I bought my first Bob Proctor program. And he did a seminar, and he gave away a free workbook. And I got through a lot of that workbook, but literally it's behind me here. I still have that workbook. But I actually never read the whole thing. And when I read it, the content he gave away was extraordinary. It's really good stuff. And but when you're doing it on your own, you have to be really disciplined, and most people aren't. we've got our habits and routines. Get a phone call from a mate, come on over, have a cup of tea, let's have a yarn. So you drop everything and you go. And or we're working too hard and you're exhausted at night, you're not going to invest the hour. If you want to deliberately transform the results that you're getting in your life, you just have to start making allowance for it. You need to create time for that. And so you have to let something go. I'll give you another example on that idea. One of my clients recently, she wanted to transform her business. She wanted to really accelerate things in her business, but she also wanted to represent Australia for a certain sport. I said, well, it's one or the other. You can't do both. Oh, no, I'll do both. 3 months later, she said, okay, I'll drop the sport. She focused on her business because she's got a big goal. And the sport's now recreation. It's not a major thing in her life. It was consuming and splitting her attention. And she's got people that she's employed, so she's got responsibility. So she had to make a responsible decision and let the sport go, because it's not going to, apart from, maybe some status in achieving something, but literally when you own a business, you have a massive responsibility if you employ people to those people to make sure that they flourish and have a good work and a solid work environment to come to every day. So that person's made that decision, and it's been a wonderful thing, and it continues. I mean, that we're still a client of mine. And so here's what happens when you try and step out of your comfort zone. What happens is that your whole system is wired to operate in a certain way. Now you're trying to step out into a new way, and your system that you operate to, both mentally and physically, is not it's not governed. It's not used to operating with that new paradigm. And so creating new paradigms is an interesting thing. You haven't got memorized pathways for your brain to just simply move down. And they can be created, but they do require a deliberate intent to do that for yourself. Right. So all right. So the cause of our problem, if we talk about the resistance that's created and the fear that is generated when we try and take new action, is caused by the paradigm. And what I want to try and do, it's not going to be that simple, because most of you don't have this PDF, which has got a lot of diagrams. I'm going to just use my head as the diagram, and we're going to talk about. Bob gave us a concept. It's a stick figure concept that helps us create order in our mind. And if you imagine my head as the mind, which is not, the mind is everywhere in our body. But if you imagine that picture, the line across, that's the conscious mind, that's your thinking mind. And this is the subconscious mind, which holds your habits, routines, and your beliefs all in your subconscious mind. That's the workhorse. That's where the power comes from. That's what you operate from every day, gives you your results. And then a small little circle below is the body, and that is an instrument of the mind. The assumptions that you make in your thinking mind influence the expectations you have on an outcome of something that you've been thinking about. And the expectations you have will influence how you behave, and the action that you take on a daily basis. And it's just assumptions, expectations, behavior. So, and that gives you your results. So that's the stick figure concept. So if we're talking about fear, if you go through history and you read the autobiographies of people who have achieved anything of significance, there's probably one thing that most of those people will agree on, is that we become what we think about. The thoughts that we think about, that we internalize, that become the ideas that we believe in, the concepts of who we think we are and what's possible and so on, that is going to impact what action that we take and the behavior that we move into every day that give us our results. It's that simple. If you want to change your results, a lot of people spend a lot of time saying, well, I don't like my job, so I'm going to change my job. And that might give you some relief for a bit. But remember that the thinking person and the beliefs and everything that leaves that job go to the next job. And so nothing really changes. What you're trying to do is change the outside. But for change to be permanent, we need to change our thinking. We need to change our assumptions, our expectations, which will change our behavior. And you start to get change on a permanent basis. And look, you may need to change the job. That's not the point. The point is that remember the assumptions and the expectations that are held within the mind are going to move with the job. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a happier person or a more successful person. It's not the outside that's the issue. It's what's being generated from within. So step one there is a 4-step process to understanding fear. So I want to talk to you about this and maybe I'll be able to show you on the screen and you might be able to see what I'm talking about. But step one is, if we just assume that if people are seeking personal development information, there's a reason for that, because they're not satisfied in a certain area of their life. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother. Everyone would be out having a picnic or going for a walk rather than listening to material about personal development. So if you recognize that there's an area of life that's not giving you satisfaction, then you can say that the result that you're getting is on repeat. If that is the case, then you're in essentially a state of bondage. All right. It sounds harsh, but it just, for simplicity's sake, if you're not satisfied where you are, then you are in a state of bondage right now, because you're getting the same result on repeat with no real plan to change it. Okay. So if I say here that in my conscious mind, I've got an X-type thought that influences X-type expectations, that's causing me to behave in X-type manner, and it's giving me X-type results. And that's just on repeat over and over and over. So the assumptions that you make, giving you the X-type thoughts or ideas, influence, and they're impressed upon your subconscious mind, move you into a state of mind, an emotional state that will cause you to act in a certain way. We're less logical than we think we are. We make decisions based on emotional ideas or emotional beliefs, and then we add logic and reason to our emotional decision to justify that decision. Look at any person that goes into a shop. Most people will buy on emotional ideas, and then they'll build a logical argument around that emotional decision. But equally, when we just get up every day and we move into action, our subconscious mind is the powerhouse. When we grasp that concept that it's our habitual behavior that's giving us the results that we get most of the time, our ability to grow and expand our lives is limited by the belief system that we're holding in our mind. And when we learn to alter that, we can get a different outcome. So step 2 of understanding fear is we move into a state of reason where your conscious mind finds an idea. So you've been thinking these X-type thoughts. You've been emotionally involved in an X-type state of mind, causing you to behave in an X-type way, and you're getting X-type results, and you're not happy with those results. And then one day you happen to see or hear an idea, and we call that new idea a Y idea. So you've got the X thoughts, X feelings, or the emotional state that you're in, causing you to behave in an X way, giving you X results. Now you've got a Y idea, and this is where it gets interesting. So you've got this Y idea that comes in from out, you hear it or see it, and now it's populating your conscious mind, but it's not, you haven't allowed it to sort of move down into your subconscious mind. You haven't got emotionally involved with the idea. You haven't identified with the idea. You just think it's a good idea, and you might talk about it a lot. You might set it as a goal, but you haven't allowed it to move down into your subconscious mind where you get emotionally involved with the idea. So you're still operating on your habitual way, your X-type habits and beliefs. You're still behaving in X-type ways, and you're still getting X-type results. And so you can carry on with that for a long time. And I did that. I know I did that when I lost my business in Sydney in 2005. I belonged to an organization that helped me train my mind and things like that. And but I didn't get it. I was still operating with the business mind that I had created businesses. One of them listed on a stock exchange. So I thought I knew some stuff. So I was confused. I was setting goals, but it was all logical in my conscious mind. I didn't allow myself to identify 1,000,000% with no bars hold, no get out clause, with a goal and going after it. I didn't allow myself to do that. I just lost the business. So my self-image, my self-esteem, my belief in myself and my self-confidence was probably at an all-time low in my life. I was 35 years old. And so I held the why idea in my conscious mind, but I didn't get emotionally involved with it. I didn't make a committed decision to go after those goals. I could discuss it with the sales manager of the company that I work for and say, yes, I'll go after that goal. And nothing happened. And I couldn't understand why, because I consciously made, and they said, and I was writing the card. Even then, 2005, I was writing the card, carrying around. But I wasn't making a committed decision. I wasn't allowing myself to impress it upon the workhorse of my mind, which is the subconscious. The power is in the subconscious mind. But there's another side to that. You see, step 3 now of this process of understanding fear. I just want to make sure I read everything on this page here first. Oh no, I want to read this to you first. So step 2, still part of step 2. Dr. Kenneth Blanchard said, there's a difference between being interested in creating a life that we want and being committed. When you're interested, then you do what's convenient. And when you're committed, you do whatever it takes. You only accept results, no excuses. I love that. That's what I wasn't doing. I was interested. in achieving my goal, but I wasn't committed. I wasn't going after it regardless. I mean, I was working long hours and so on, but there was always, if I went to the sales manager and said, oh, I didn't get that sale, blah, 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 I'd make a million excuses. Here he says, yeah, no excuses. Our mind, our ideas only move into action when we become emotionally involved with the idea and take action on them regardless of the fact of what's happening in the environment. We don't have to have all the details worked out. And this is the interesting thing, because when you've got a C-type goal that's outside of your comfort zone and you step out, then where's the money going to come from? I haven't got the skill to achieve that. I haven't got the resources. And this is the interesting idea of this whole concept of the laws of success, the laws of attraction. Everything is about attraction. What are you attracting into your life at this moment? And identify what it is that you don't want and say, okay, well, pivot, that's what I prefer. And then when you say, that's what I prefer, now you're stepping into a new area and you can't actually, you don't even know how to get there. The way that we're designed as human beings is we're constantly creating, and some people are able to take bigger steps because they've got a lot of courage, or they've figured out that when you face fear and step through it, then you start operating at a different level all the time, and it's just a constant stepping through. So if we've been through stage 1 is bondage, stage 2 is reason. You've identified an idea that you would prefer, but you're not committed to it. Then something happens. For me, it was an emotional impact. I lost my business in Sydney, and I lost all my money, brand new back in Australia, and no network and no degrees. I don't have any qualifications. So that was a massive emotional impact. I had to relearn things and figure out what actually does work. Why are some people more successful than other people? And it's got nothing to do with intellect. It has everything to do with becoming aware of who you are. And so when you step into step 3 of the 4 steps of understanding this whole concept of the terror barrier, is step 3 is conflict. And the way that the conflict happens is we originally started X-type idea, operating on X-type habits and beliefs, giving us X-type results. Now in our conscious mind, we've got a Y idea, still operating on X habits and behaviors and so on, and getting X results. Then we say, no, I actually want to change my life. I'm committing to this goal. I'm going after this thing that I've never done before. So what happened is you start to allow that yourself to become emotionally involved and identify with that goal. And what happens now is you've got X ideas or beliefs and habits in your subconscious mind. Now you're forming Y ideas, beliefs, habits in your subconscious mind. And what happens then is that your body goes into absolute shock, because you're operating on 2 different frequencies. You've got the old ideas and you've got this new idea, and it's causing all kinds of electrical mess up in your body, and you start to freak out. And literally what happens then is the conscious mind says, well, what's going on? I better start doubting this idea. I better start worrying about this idea. And worry and doubt, when it moves down into your subconscious, becomes fear. And fear actually expresses itself through the body, through anxiety. And that's how it happens. So I'll try and give you this on the... So you can see the Y idea in the conscious mind then moves down into the subconscious mind. Now you've got an X plus Y, and that's expressed through the body, X, Y vibration. And that causes all kinds of confusion. And that's why people will move into a state of anxiety and they start doubting the idea. And so that's at that point, that's where people have a choice. You have a choice of either moving through the barrier or bouncing back to bondage. Your choice. And we're doing it all the time. People are, when you feel anxious about moving into a new area, some people are able to step forward and keep stepping forward, and then they recover because they've entered into the new area and it's not as bad as they thought it was, or they just go back to bondage and they stay stuck where they are until, and this is where decision making is important to understand, because the decisions you don't make today about growing into becoming the person that you want to become, they don't go away. They actually move with you through time. So if you don't make the decision to change and move in the direction of what you want today, you're going to have to make that in a year's time, 10 years' time, whatever it is. And that understanding that is really important, because then it helps you say, well, I'm just going to make decisions. Now, I know people that are master procrastinators. They're really good at it. They live their life like that. They're very chill people, but they're not achieving exactly what they want. If they're completely honest with themselves, which some of them have said, this is what I really want, but I don't believe I'll ever get it. That's because they live a life of indecision, of procrastinating. Rather than just saying, no, bugger it, I'm going to make a decision and I'm just going to start stepping forward, and the resources will be revealed as you start stepping forward. It's a funny thing how it works. When I bought my first Bob Proctor program, literally we had just booked to go overseas to a wedding, and we were making okay money, but we weren't making that much money, where the program that I bought was time and a bit, well, the amount and a bit more than the whole holiday for our whole family overseas to this wedding. And when I bought it, my wife, who's a bookkeeper, did not see the humor in that. But within a few months, more than that amount arrived. It wasn't planned for, and covered that whole program. And it was when we trust in this whole concept of infinite intelligence or universe, or some people say God, then when you start to step forward in faith, which incidentally is the polar opposite to fear. And faith and fear are actually the opposite ends of the same concept. Faith and fear are both belief in an unknown outcome in the future. So if faith and fear are the opposite ends of the same concept, then learning to have faith in a better outcome in your decisions is a more progressive way of approaching life, rather than staying stuck in bondage of fear. So how does that work? Well, we understand that when we're stepping out into a new area, and I've just been through the 3 steps, and then the conflict step, we go into a shock of, you got the X, Y ideas, both operating in your subconscious mind in complete conflict. And that's causing you to feel or want to feel anxiety. Then the conscious mind starts to doubt, worry. Then in the subconscious, we move into fear. And so how do we repair that idea or replace that idea? Well, it's not that complicated. The key issue with the whole concept of fear, of worry and doubt, is ignorance. That is the biggest cause of all the problems in the world, actually, is being ignorant of different ideas. So people move into worry, doubt, and fear because they just don't have the right information to make different choices. How do you rectify that? Well, you just get different knowledge. When you've got knowledge, and a lot of people study the laws that govern the universe, they study the laws of attraction and so on, and they're, some people are incredibly knowledgeable on the whole idea. There's one, but they're still getting the results that they don't want, and it's very frustrating. And the reason for that is the implementation of that information is the missing link. So when you start to implement that information in a methodical way, which is what I had to learn to do, and it's paid off enormously for me because it is a process. So, and anyone can learn this process. So when you start to apply the laws that govern success, and you start to see results, now that new knowledge gives you understanding. When you've got understanding in your conscious mind, you're wiring new neural pathways in your brain to say, well, I can operate on that now rather than my old way of operation because it gives me a new result. When you've got that type of understanding, now you move into your subconscious mind, calms down into a state of faith. Faith based on understanding, not blind faith. There's a complete different. Blind faith means nothing because the first bump in the road and you're off course. But faith based on understanding, yes, I know that's going to happen. I just have to persevere. I have to persist. Boom. Now you keep building on that. It's a more progressive way of addressing life. It's a more progressive way of moving forward through what we call the terror barrier, which is that barrier there. You can either bounce off it back into bondage, or you can move forward into freedom. And the only challenge once you move forward into freedom is you're operating now with the new why idea, and that becomes your bondage. So you're perpetually moving forward towards what it is that you want. So why does this, what is the issue with the XY idea being in your subconscious mind? Well, it's quite simple. The X idea, which is your old idea, is saying, Shane, stay where you are. You know what happens there. That's your comfort zone. And your Y idea, which is the new idea, is saying, no, step forward into the unknown. So that's where the conflict is. When you understand that, then you can choose the right choice. You can make the right decision and say, no, I don't want to stay where I am. I want to continually grow into becoming the better version of who I am, live a better life, a bigger life, more a different experience in life. And we can choose that when you understand how fear works. And if you send me an email on support@Mindset Guide, I can send you this document. So you can actually, I've got a page there that you can start messing around with it and drawing these ideas out for yourself so that you can become really good at understanding how the terror barrier works, so that you become very you've developed an awareness that you can't go back from now, because once you become aware of something, you become aware that when you've got an old idea that you're habitually used to and you mix it with a new idea of moving forward, that's where the conflict is. The old idea is trying to keep you stuck where you are, and the new idea is trying to pull you forward into a new experience in life. So in I'll move on now to my good friend, well, I wish I'd known him, Napoleon Hill. This is a book that got Bob Proctor started 60 years ago. He read the book every day for pretty much 60 years, the same book. In the back of this book, Napoleon Hill writes about how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. And it's a really good article. I recommend reading this and studying it. I wouldn't read it once, I would study it. This is a really interesting chapter. And he says here, take inventory of yourself as you read this closing chapter of this book, and find out how many ghosts are standing in your way of achieving what it is that you want. He says, before you can put any portion of this philosophy to successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. And I find that really interesting because for my early childhood, my grandmother, who's recently passed at 94, I think, wonderful woman, she was Catholic. Well, she wasn't Catholic until she married my grandfather, and then she became Catholic. And she was a very devout Catholic. So that influenced my life. And good or bad, whatever, it doesn't matter. I don't practice Catholicism now, but I do find comfort in Mass because I grew up with it. I was an altar boy and all that sort of thing. But when I was a little fella, my grandmother used to make us kneel because we lived with her for a bit because my parents split up and there was all kinds of chaos. And she'd say, no, say your prayers, and you say your prayers at night. And you're always asking for stuff, but you don't necessarily receive it. That's the one area that really frustrated me, and I know that it frustrates a lot of people, is that they're taught to ask, but they don't know how to receive. And he uses these words in the first sentence of this chapter. Before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, and he talks about the philosophy of this whole book, your mind must be prepared to receive it. So we can ask as much as we want, but if we're not prepared to receive what we've asked for, if we haven't set our mind on receiving, then it will stay away from us, that thing that we're asking for, that goal that we want, that relationship that we want, that health, that physical health thing that we want. We cause the resistance and we cause the separation between what we've asked for and what we receive. The preparation is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding the 3 enemies that you shall have to clear out. And these are indecision, doubt, fear. So I'm not going to read the whole chapter to you, but I recommend reading this chapter. Don't read it once, study it. And he talks about the 6 basic fears. And these are, I'll read them to you, the fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love of someone, fear of old age, and fear of death. Now, some people may argue that there's more or less or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it's just interesting getting a concept of this man studied 500 of the most successful people at that time in the US. And he wrote this book, which has been a classic that has been, that's enabled many, many people really become successful in their life, because the concept that he talks about in here actually create order in our minds and enable us to become aware of what is actually possible. he goes on to say that that the fear of poverty, I've made notes in my PDF about the fear of poverty, is probably, let's see what it says here. There's no compromise between poverty and riches. The two roads that lead to poverty and riches travel in opposite directions. So when he talks about riches, he talks about living a rich, fulfilling life in your relationships, in monetary wealth, and the way that you live, and the comfort that you have, the health that you have. So it's not, he wrote the book really to focus on financial, because during the time of the Depression and went into the Second World War and so on. So that was very much in the consciousness of the planet at that time. But it has served many people. As Bob Proctor says, if you set financial goals, then you will be able to measure your success to the penny. And that's really important. Tomorrow I'll be talking about money, because people have an interesting idea about money. And I will be talking about Bob's interpretation of money. So that, if you've got a paradigm around money, maybe some of what I'm going to say tomorrow will help you alleviate your mind on those concepts, and you'll be able to develop new concepts, new assumptions on money. He said here, the starting point of the path that leads to riches is desire. And that's the first chapter in this book. The first is riches. In chapter 1, you receive full instruction on the proper use of desire. In this chapter on fear, you have the complete instruction of preparing your mind to make practical use of desire. So fear, here's a point in which you can turn and predict accurately what the future holds in store for you when you start to work through this chapter here. After reading this chapter, you'll be able to you are willing. After reading this chapter, you are willing to accept poverty. You may as well make your mind up to receive poverty. So if you're willing to accept poverty, then that's what you're going to receive. If you demand riches, then you're going to actually set yourself on a better path. Our minds can only think of one thing at a time. So if you're hoping for a better life, but you are accepting poverty in your life, then that's a challenge, because they're opposite ends of the scale, and you either focused on one or the other. And this is where the power is that you get to choose that through your conscious mind. It sounds simple, but remember, we're dealing with your paradigm. The paradigm is your belief system. What is a belief? A belief is a thought that you just keep thinking about. That's what it is. Often, a lot of the beliefs that we inherit along the way are beliefs that we've inherited from our parents or guardians or people that we really respected. So we adopt their beliefs. And often with a belief, if you spend time reevaluating beliefs that you might not necessarily think are providing you with an outcome that you want, often if you reevaluate them, you'll come up with a new belief, and you'll replace. You never get rid of the old beliefs. They don't ever go away, but you can just focus your attention on something that will give you better results. And I come from a very interesting background in terms of where I grew up, and the belief systems of the people when I was a young fella. Then we went through an independence struggle, and then I went to school with Africans. But before that, I wasn't at school with Africans. And then, so that whole shift is an interesting shift. And, no one should ever go through that, because, there were many different belief systems there, and there still are. Not as pronounced, I suppose, when that happened, because it was incredibly focused. But then you start to operate with different belief systems, and all they are is friggin' ideas. They're not real. They're ideas made up in people's minds, and we can change them. Or we can adopt new beliefs and create beliefs that are actually based on universal principles, that are based on love, not separation. The whole idea of separation is causing so much conflict in the world. We can see it all the time. I don't watch the media, but people telling me what's going on, and it's desperate. It just seems pointless. I went through that, and I lost relatives in a pointless struggle for not being separated. I'm just trying to find good bits of info here. This fear paralyzes the faculty of reason, destroys the faculty of imagination, kills off self-reliance, undermines enthusiasm, discourages initiative, leads to uncertainty of purpose, encourages procrastination, wipes out enthusiasm, and makes self-control an impossibility. So the fear of poverty is probably a pretty important idea and concept for anyone who wants to achieve anything of significance in their life, to recognize whether they subscribe to that idea. So this chapter, chapter 15, I'm sure you'll be able to get it online. Excuse me. But I would read this, and you'd be surprised what you may find of yourself. So the symptoms of the fear of poverty are indifference, so commonly expressed through lack of ambition, willingness to tolerate poverty, acceptance of whatever compensation life may offer without protest, mental and physical laziness, lack of initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, and self-control. That's the first symptom of fear of poverty. Second is indecision, the habit of permitting others to do the thinking, staying on the fence. Another symptom is doubt. So generally expressed through alibis and excuses designed to cover, explain away, or apologize for one's failures, sometimes expressed in the form of envy of those who are successful, or by criticizing them. That's the fear of poverty. Worry is the fourth one. Overcaution. And then the biggest explanation he has here is procrastination. The habit of putting off until tomorrow that which should have been done last year. Yeah, so he goes into quite detail in that one. It's a really good chapter, this. All right. I want to finish with an article that Bob Proctor wrote on decision. And again, I can send you this article if you email me on support@mindsetguide.com.au. So Bob says here, there's a single mental move you can make which in a millisecond will solve enormous problems for you. It has the potential to improve almost any personal or business situation you'll ever encounter, and it could literally propel you down the path to incredible success. And the name of that magic mental activity, it's called decision. And it is such an I mean, Bob's written a number of pages here, and he goes into it in a lot of detail of why we don't make decisions and how we can. And decision making is something that very few institutions on the planet actually teach people. So we're kind of left to our devices to make important life decisions, and often they're based on the wrong assumptions. They're based on thoughts of worry and doubt and fear, rather than knowledge, understanding, and faith. That's why it's so important, in my opinion, because I've been through quite a lot, and I've been able to turn things around very quickly in relative terms, to continually improve your understanding of who you are and your personal development journey. A personal development journey is probably the most or the best investment anyone can make in their life, because we're given this marvelous mind. Most people can sense that there's an enormous power within them seeking expression in the world. Most people can sense that. And some people call it God, some people call it infinite intelligence, universe, source energy, whatever people want to call that. And we channel that energy, that creative force, using our mind. So if your mind is set on worry, doubt, and fear, then you can logically see that it's going to impede or it's going to limit your experience in the world. And we're only here for a short period of time. Maybe we come back again, I don't know. But, you know, the whole idea of living a richer and fuller life. I love what Wallace D. Wattle talks about in his book, The Science of Getting Rich. I'll read from it there. Wallace D. Wattles, he maintained that there's a science to getting rich, and it's a lawful process. When you understand this lawful process, then all you have to do is actually move into action every day in a certain way. And we can all learn that. And he says here, there is a science of getting rich. There's an exact science, like algebra or arithmetic. When I heard that, I was relieved, because I thought, well, if that's the case, then I'm just going to learn this science. And when I started, it was stop-start, because I was busy with life and we had young children and so on. And, my old way of living. But over time, I'm starting to become more in tune with these ideas, because I have an enormous goal. I've got 40 years to achieve it. I probably won't ever achieve the whole thing, but it's big enough to keep me occupied for 40 years, that's for sure. And he said there are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. Once you learn and obey these laws, you'll get rich with mathematical certainty. There's one great law, namely, energy is, or if you're a theologian or a religious person, you'll say God is. All physical and mental science is based on this one great law. And then there's 7 subsidiary laws which operate and in coordination with each other. The laws of vibration is the law that serves the foundation of the law of attraction. So the 7 laws, I'll go through them quickly, is the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. So what that means is that energy is moving into form and out of form all the time. You cannot destroy energy. Energy just is. So when we look at the sky, I'm looking out across the beautiful forest there, and I can see some blue sky, but then there's some big dark clouds, because what's happened is it was blue skies yesterday. Then we've got some precipitation, then rain will fall, and then the water will flow down to the ocean. It will evaporate, And that's the perpetual transmutation of energy. The same happens within us. Where there's a perpetual transmutation of energy happening with Earth, there's an energy that's flowing into us all the time. We create thoughts and ideas of what we want, make a cup of tea. We get emotionally involved with that. Yeah, I really want a cup of tea. And I behave in a certain way, make the cup of tea, drink it, and so on. The process just keeps going over and over and over. Perpetual transmutation. Then there's the law of relativity. I love this law because what it means is that everything just is. Nothing's big or small, large, nothing's hot or cold. And it doesn't make sense, but if you just grasp the concept, what the law of relativity says, everything just is, because it depends on what you're measuring it against. So let me use it logically. If I applied the law of relativity to money, some people think that $100,000 income a year is a lot of money. Some people think $1 million a year income is a lot of money, and so on. But really, if you know how to earn $1 million a year, that isn't a lot of money. But if you compare it to $10 million a year, then it's relative to that. But if you're earning $1 million and you measure it against $100,000, it's all relative to how you perceive it. So if you just say, my income just is, I don't think $1 million is big or small. Now you start to relax your mind. You start to make different assumptions. That's how some people are able to break out of, ideas of how much they think they should earn. Who decided that someone earns $35 an hour doing a certain job? Who decided that? God didn't decide it. It was just an idea. And so we bought that idea. Now we can unbuy those ideas and say, well, I actually don't want to earn $35, $40, $50, $100 an hour. I want to earn $1,000 a day. I want to earn $10,000 a day. We can decide whatever we want, and we can make it small relative to another number. That's the law of relativity. When you learn to use it to your advantage, here's an interesting idea. You can use it to learn to help lift your self-image. Instead of comparing ourselves, which most people do, is comparing ourselves to someone who's faster, stronger, more beautiful, richer. Start comparing yourself to someone who hasn't got those attributes that you've got. And then you don't feel as bad. It's not, you're not judging other people, but you're not holding yourself back by saying, I'm not as good as that person. There will be one thing in your life that you're better than every other person on the planet. And that's just the thing you focus on. Forget the rest. We're not all going to be as beautiful as the next person. We're not going to all be as strong. It's like blokes picking a fight and thinking that they're really strong. There's always going to be someone stronger, so why bother? Just rather negotiate your way out of a conflict. It's not worth it. There's always going to be someone stronger. There's always going to be someone who's going to have a flashier car. So who cares? Untick yourself from that dilemma by using the law of relativity. Then there's the law of vibration, and that's the base law of the law of attraction, because the thoughts that we think and we get emotionally involved with, the emotional side of us is so powerful because it transmits a signal. It transmits a frequency. That's what we feel when we move into a room and there is a mood of excitement at the footy game, or we move into a room at a wake and people are sad. We can pick up that emotion. That's the vibration that people are in. Now, the law of vibration is interesting. The law of attraction says what we send out is what we get back. So if we can learn to manage the vibration, the vibration that we're in, and I actually did a talk about this recently, it's not about being positive-minded, because if you're positive-minded, then that implies that you can be negative-minded when things aren't going so well. what is a better state of mind is to be I'm neutral, and that I am in a state of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, if you look it up, the Greek word means in spirit. And you in spirit of, I understand that everything is well and that everything will turn out as I expect it to turn out. The circumstances around might not be showing that, but you understand that it'll just come to pass in time when you persist. So the law of vibration is a really important law to understand, because what we signal into the world through our emotions, through our behavior, through the words that we use, then that's what we get back in equal. And so then number 4 is the law of polarity. And so the law of polarity is the law of opposites. So the beauty is, if you have a question, there is an answer. And it goes on. I mean, I can spend a lot of time on these laws. I'm going to go through them quickly. The law of rhythm is life. So the tide goes out, the tide comes in. The sun comes up, the sun sets. We move through seasons in the year. We move through seasons in our life. There will be times where we will be happy, and there will be times where we'll be sad. There will be times where we'll prosper, and there will be times that we're not so prosperous, and so on. But always understand that we just move through these seasons. And when you grasp that, I loved hearing just up the road, and I forget what town it is, there was a landline. One Sunday hour, I was just watching Landline, and there was they were interviewing the son of a farmer who was 100 years old, or he was the son-in-law, and he was driving the farmer around. And this farmer is still buying cattle at 100 years old for his farm, just north of Gympie. And so they interviewed people in town, and they said, no, they love him. They said, because he'll come to town and it'll be a real dry year. And they'll say, oh, and everyone just says, oh, it's really dry, there's no rain. He said, don't worry, it'll come. And then it'll be too much rain, and they're having to move cattle off properties because it's flooding and whatever. He said, don't worry, it'll dry out. He'd been doing it for 100 years. I think he started farming when he was 18 years old. So that was a long time farming cattle in that area. And I don't know if he's still alive. That was a few years ago. Anyway, that's the law of rhythm. Then number 6 is the law of cause and effect. And Emerson said this is the law of laws, because our thoughts are the cause and our behavior creates the effect. And it's how we behave, there's a reaction within whatever we behave, and that's where we cause the results in our life, cause and effect. And interestingly, the whole idea, the whole argument between is there God and what's real? Is it theology or is it science? And for years they were antagonistic, but actually they're the same thing. Theology is all about the cause, and effect is the result that we get in the world, and science focuses on that, and they'll just dissect molecules up until they can't dissect them anymore, saying this is how it all works and so on. But there's also the unseen thought world, which is just as real, because the skyscrapers that are built on the planet aren't just built through people moving things around. Someone has to think about it first, and someone has to design it first. And so the thought world is as important as our science world. And neither is right or wrong. Everything just is. And then the law of gender. And the law of gender is interesting because I'm not going to go into all the detail of that law, but really the thoughts that you think are a spiritual seed. And if you allow that seed to move down into your subconscious, the treasury of your subconscious mind, and you nurture that thought, that idea, that dream, then the law of gender decrees that over time there's a gestation period between that thought being created in your mind and it becoming a thing in the world. And that gestation period is the one thing that mankind has never figured out. How long does it take you to achieve your goal? Take your best guess. You know, we know when we put a carrot seed in the ground, we know how long it's going to take before the carrot grows. We know that when a woman falls pregnant, that there's X number of days and then you generally have a child. And that is easy to calculate because that's all natural in the nature. We can see it and touch it and dissect it and analyze it. But the one thing we can't do is understand how long it takes for that concept you have in your mind to become something in. And that's why, if you've got a big goal and you want to create something for your life, it's worth getting involved with groups of people that are goal-orientated, people that will, one, hold you to account to the goal that you have, and two, will encourage you and help you with ideas. And some people call that a mastermind, whatever you want to call it, but there must be goal-orientated people who understand the laws of success. Because if you've got a big goal, you need people around you. You can't do it. You can do it on your own, but it's easier to do it with groups of people and keep the momentum going. Righto, so I've come to the end of this lesson. If anyone wants, like I say, the PDF of this lesson on fear, send me an email on support@mindsetguide.com.au. I'm more than happy to send it to you. If you want to, I'm going to upload this onto my private Facebook group. So if you want that PDF and you want to go through this lesson, if you found anything interesting in there that stimulated some ideas in your mind, then just join my closed Facebook group, which is the links in my bio of the TikTok. And then you can, this should be up. When I loaded the one from yesterday, I think it eventually loaded on Facebook at about midnight, I think. So you'll be able to review it maybe tomorrow. I'm going to be back here tomorrow, midday, talk about all the concepts Bob Proctor taught on money, so that if you've got a challenge or a paradigm around money, then maybe some of those ideas might relieve you. You know, we often brought up with ideas that, where do you think the money is going to come from? Money doesn't grow on trees, and all those concepts that, people they're drummed into us by our parents and that, who are literally doing the best they can, but no one gives us a manual to operate this marvelous mind that we have. We have an incredible, powerful asset that came free to us, but no operator's manual. And that's our responsibility to understand how that is. So if you've got negative ideas towards money, then hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to give you different ideas to think about. I'm not saying that I'm right and that other people are wrong. That's not the point. The point is to try and create momentum in the direction of what you want. And often what we want requires cash. It requires money. And often, a lot of people write comments on my TikTok and Facebook and so on, and they say, money's evil and money is the cause of evil, and I don't need money. I want relationships, and that's all cool. But at the end of the day, your mortgage broker or the bank that you borrowed the money from to pay for your home actually cares about money, and the grocery store cares about money. IGA and Coles and Woolies, you won't eat much, or you'll eat poorly if you don't have money. We had to pay to send our kids to school. So the schools thought money was important. So to say in a first world country or any country that money is not important, really, I don't buy that idea. I was broke when I lost all my money in a failed business in Sydney, and I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have no money in a first world country when people are paying to go overseas on holidays with their kids, and I didn't have the money to put petrol in my car to go to church on a Sunday. And that's ridiculous when, we're intelligent human beings that can create anything that we really put our minds to. And I was broke, and at 35, I thought, bugger that, I'm going to change that. And you can. Anyone can. If I can, you can. That's for sure. I didn't grow up in this country, so I had to figure things out bloody quickly. And you can. It's not complicated. And but if you've got negative ideas that are holding you where you are, those are paradigm, then hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to give you some ideas that will help you relieve. So see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock if anyone's going to join me. And again, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, I am going through another program, the 7 steps, practical steps to stopping yourself from just delaying what you want to get to. And it's 7 practical steps. And I've been doing that. I do that Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 10 o'clock on TikTok live, and been going for a couple of weeks, and it's been very handy. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.